Hello guys, welcome to ASPE Coursework Talk screencast. I've just put this together as I know you're in the kind of midst of the moment of doing your talks, so I just wanted to give you some few guidelines. I've tried to give them you as we go along, but I thought this might be helpful for you to look at over the next week, just to check you're on the right lines, or change and adapt anything, so I don't have to keep giving the same feedback over and over again. So you're looking at 2 to 5 skill strengths and weaknesses, 2 to 4 fitness strengths and weaknesses, 2 to 3 tactic strengths or weaknesses. Okay, so you'll look at when you look at your video, that's what you're looking to find. So basically, the key thing after you've done these strengths and weaknesses, you must then have a conclusion or a summary sentence as to the overall success of the performer you watched. Okay, so you'll just have a quick summary and say, so what did he do good? Okay, what did he do not so well? And was he successful for that, or was she successful for that specific position that and activity they were in. Going on from there, you have an action plan, which you will have. You start off with your priority weakness. You pick one weakness. You must justify why that priority weakness is important for that position of player that you have identified. Why is it so important? And then you'll start to go down and have a look at the progressive practice, etc., which I'll look at when we go over. And finally, you go on to this bit here, which is your kind of theoretical application. Now, theoretical application, I've asked you to kind of put this, intersperse it with your strengths, weaknesses, and action plan, rather than do it as a standalone, because I think that just makes it more relevant to what you're seeing. So that's what you aim to do. Get that theory in alongside your strengths, weaknesses, and then leave a little bit at the end after your action plan. Okay, so I'm going to go now and have a little go at trying to go through this for you, do a little exemplar one, so you can kind of see how you're trying to do it. So the kind of things that you should be trying to do, some of yours I'm sure will be better than mine. I'll put this together now just as a help. So going on, I'm going to do a quick strengths and weaknesses analysis then of Worcester Sixth Form College, winger, okay, right winger, number 7 on the video I watched, and I'm going to give you some strengths and weaknesses and justify those. Okay, so starting off, the first skill strength I noticed was dribbling. He had 3 attempts at dribbling, 2 of them were successful. By that I mean he managed to get away from, I noticed he got away from the fullback, the left back, and I noticed he did that because he managed to change direction. Not only that, but speed as well. Now he managed to fool the defender by using kind of set moves. So he used a scissor dribble where he put his foot over the ball and then went the other way, got the defender off balance and managed to go away from him and then get a cross in, which I'll talk about after. This could be due to the fact he's a neurotic personality. Now, neurotic personality, according to iSync, means that the person's unpredictable. And this is perfect for a winger because they're often trying to be unpredictable to kind of put the defender off balance and make them second guess. Moving on, crossing was also a strength, as I said a minute ago. When he managed to get dribble round the fullback, he also managed to get crosses in. Now, yeah, managed to get one cross in out of the 2. The first one got hit at the front post, but I just thought I'd say this is a strength because the second cross that he got in actually went right into a perfect position in the second 6-yard box. The attacker jumped to head it, missed it, but it was a perfect height of cross. So it was kind of nose, kind of head height, and it was whipped in away from the goalkeeper, so he couldn't come and take it into the second 6-yard box, which is a danger area for the striker. Third strength was shooting. I noticed there's 2 shots, both of which he made fantastic contact with, particularly the second one. It didn't go in, but the one went wide, just wide, and the second one was going. It was kind of straight at the goalkeeper, but it was hit with amazing power. Now that power would have been due to kind of his head position and the kind of surface of the foot he used. His head was over the ball, and he smacked through the ball using his laces. Now, when doing this, I mean, the motor unit located within his fast twitch fibers within his kind of rectus femoris would have been responsible. So the motor neuron unit requires a motor neuron to receive an impulse from the central nervous system. This is then passed down via the axon and the action potential, which is a positive electrical charge that allows the impulse to be carried down towards a neuromuscular junction. And it then crosses, when it gets to the neuromuscular junction, it crosses the synaptic cleft via the neurotransmitter acetylcholine and then passes into the muscle fibre where the all or none law will take place. So if all fibres are above the threshold, the impulse is above the threshold, all fibres will contract. In this case, all fibres definitely did contract as it allowed him to get that shot away with extreme power. Fourth strength was his first touch. I noticed when he received the ball and when he was about to dribble, whenever he had that ball come to him, he had a real light first touch which left it about a metre away, which allowed him then to kind of attack the fullback straight away rather than having to have 2-3 touches. So he managed to get at the fullback very quickly. Now I think this could be due to the fact he was optimally aroused. When that ball came towards him, his attentional field width was the perfect width. This allowed him to use selective attention appropriately, so he could pick out the ball and where the defender was all in one go, which allowed him then to attack him, as I said, and dribble and cross, as I've said before. Now going on to fitness strengths. Now his fitness strengths, first one was strength. When he did come into a situation where his dribble didn't quite succeed, he managed to then keep and shield the ball by shoulder barging the fullback off. Now I look at this, I think this could be due to the fact of certain muscular adaptations to training. I looked at him, he was quite a bit more muscular than the fullback, and this could be due to something called muscle hypertrophy and muscle hyperplasia, where the muscle fibers micro tear and split to give it a bigger appearance and also an increased force of contraction. He also may have had an increased recruitment of fast twitch motor units, as I mentioned earlier, which allows him to be more forceful when in kind of 50-50 situations. Speed was also a strength. Like I said, when he was dribbling, he had to get round the player and use his speed to do that. This could be due to having a high fast twitch type 2B muscle fibers, which have high PC stores, high glycogen stores, which also will then allow the functional characteristics of a high force of contraction and a high speed of contraction. Moving on, when dribbling, he managed to keep his balance really well. He had a very low centre of mass, which is good for stability as it allows you to change direction quickly. But what was also interesting is he managed to move his centre of mass outside the base of support. So he managed to, when he was dribbling, he managed to body feint by taking his body one way. His centre of mass would then move outside the area of support, which would then fool the defender, and he managed to move back the other way. Agility, changing direction. He managed to change direction when dribbling and also off the ball, which I'll talk about when I'm talking about movement off the ball down here later. He managed to kind of change direction quickly, so he'd go in to out to try and get the ball into feet, and also when he had the ball at his feet, he managed to dribble around going forward. It's very important to mention his agility was good going forward. Then tactically, he had very good attacking width. So when the team had the ball, he managed to keep his position right out on the wing. Now this was good for the team because it allowed space for the striker to run, and also when the ball came to the winger, it allowed him to isolate the fullback one-on-one. Okay, so he wasn't in field where the midfielders and centre backs could mark him. He was right out 1v1 on the side of the pitch, so he could go and attack. Last thing, movement off the ball. Now, movement off the ball, like I said, was a strength, as I mentioned earlier, with agility. He'd had a really good situation where he would come in sometimes into the pitch. He'd start wide, come in, and then he'd duck back out over the top so the ball could be played long over the top. Sometimes he'd start out wide and he'd go wide to show in to get the ball into his feet and go and attack in between the centre-back and the full-back. This could be due to the fact he has schema. Now, schema are generalised motor programs located in the long-term memory that could be adapted to new situations. Now, this would suggest that he's done a fair bit of attacking variable practice where the conditions change, which allow you to kind of get these decision making and information processing parallels to game situations. Now, going on to weaknesses. First weakness, I would say, was, in general, I would say it was his defensive work. So his tackling was definitely a weakness. Okay, so his tackling, twice the fullback had the ball and managed to dribble round him without hardly any effort. I mean, his effort was really poor. So I'd look at this and say this tackling could be due to a negative attitude towards tackling. So, for example, the components of attitude state that you'd have cognitive, affective, behavioural. Now, the cognitive would suggest his beliefs are that he doesn't need to tackle as an attacking or part of a front three as a winger. Effective, his feelings are that he doesn't enjoy doing that. He doesn't enjoy doing the dirty work going backwards. And finally, his behavioural, his actions towards tackling was that he didn't do it. He didn't make one tackle in the game and he let people go past him without hardly any effort. So in order to change this, you could use cognitive dissonance, which is creating disharmony between the components of attitude. So that negative attitude be changed by seeing, it's a role model such as Luis Suarez talking about the benefits of pressing the ball up high. So that means that the team can get the ball up higher at the pitch and you've got more chances as a winger or a front three player of scoring. Another weakness was short passing. I noticed with short passing, his dribbling was very good, but when it came to passing, it was almost like he was admitting defeat, and his passing lacked any kind of power. His contact wasn't really very good. His head position wasn't right, and often the ball would have real horrible spin on it, which caused the ball to bobble and stop the team from keeping possession. Heading was also a weakness. When he tried to head it, his kind of head, rather than keeping his eyes on the ball and heading it, when the ball came long, after he made his runs over the top, sometimes the ball would not not go over the top, and it would land around the fullback area. So I think it happened once or twice, and when that happened, his head was kind of going downwards, and it kind of hit him on the top of the head. Now I look at this, and when it happened both times, he kind of ducked his head as if he was a little bit scared of the ball. This might suggest that he had state anxiety, which is that situation-specific form of anxiety brought on by certain events. He wasn't anxious during the game, but when the ball came high towards a header, he looked pretty anxious. Now, going on from there, cardiovascular endurance was also a weakness. He was very good at explosive actions going forward, but then when it came to running backwards and going the other way and showing this endurance, he failed to show that. This would suggest that he would have a lack of kind of cardiovascular adaptations to training, so he would not have cardiac hypertrophy, which would mean he'd have a lower stroke volume, cardiac output, venous return than his fullback, because he seemed to be able to run both directions. Also, he might have a reduced amount of red blood cells, which are responsible for kind of diffusing oxygen and carrying oxygen and then diffusing them into the working muscles. In order to change this, he could apply the FIT principle to aerobic training. So he could maybe train 3 times a week, 60 to 80% of his max heart rate. 20 minutes plus, and then he could probably do the training type that would be most specific for him would be fartlek training, which is a mixture of continuous and interval, which allows him to work on speeds and varied intensities. Flexibility was also a weakness. When the fullback dribbled round him, I noticed he couldn't actually get his leg out far enough to kind of stop the ball. This would suggest a lack of flexibility at the hip. Now, this could be due to the joint shape of the hip, which means that the pelvis has got a shallow socket, which means that when the femur fits in there, it's very difficult for it to show the kind of the full rotate circumduction that the shoulder would show. So that could be one of the reasons, and also the kind of the rigid 5Y ligaments at the hip could prevent that kind of pure abduction to go and stop that ball going from around him. Leadership was also a weakness. He was very, very quiet throughout the game, not to say one word to any of his teammates. In some of the kind of his communication was poor. When it was in a situation when the ball was on his side and the defensive kind of pressing was requiring him to be the first person there, his leadership in terms of taking the game by the scruff of the neck was non-existent. Now, this could be linked to introversion. Introverts don't like social situations. They don't like to communicate. They don't affiliate well with other people, and this kind of looked a little bit like him. He's quite introverted off the ball, not so much on it, but certainly off the ball when it was come to defensive play. This could be linked to attitude, as we talked about earlier. Or this final weakness was high pressing. Okay, so his high pressing was poor. So basically, when the ball went from the right centre back to the left centre back, his trigger there was to be in a semi position where he could kind of then go and attack the fullback, but he didn't. Okay, he held back, and when the ball went to him, the fullback then was allowed to dribble towards him and get around him. He didn't press. They'd left the whole team down, because when the ball went to the striker, pushed the centre back to pass it to the fullback, he was not close enough to go and actually make an impact on the fullback. Now, this could be due to the ring oven effect, linked to Steiner's model, which proposes that actual productivity equals potential productivity minus losses due to faulty processes. Now, this could be due to, so as group size increases, coordination might decrease according to Ringelmann. So in this case, what we're saying, in an 11-a-side game, he struggled in positioning and timing due to in the pressing system they were trying to do. So in terms of the overall success of the performer, I would suggest that the overall success was that in terms of his kind of attacking role, he was extremely successful. He managed to dribble, he managed to cross, he managed to shoot, all attributes required for a top-level winger. However, the flip side to that is as a team player, when it came to the defensive side of his game, it was not good. Okay, so although he was successful in his role as an attacking player, nowadays the front line are the first kind of part of defence, and he didn't really show that. So that will kind of lower his kind of success compared to the attacking point of view.